Welcome everyone. Now it is day 20, reading through 1st and 2nd Kings. Today encountering chapters 17 and 18 of 2nd Kings, of course. We are in the final 5 readings. I do want to mention this. For the final video, I want to, if you have any questions regarding these readings in 1st and 2nd Kings, email them to me, text them to me. I'll try to address anything that you would like addressed. Try to answer any questions. Try to confront anything you would like to confront. So I'll do that on the final video next week on Thursday. Let's see. All right. Well, we're looking at a recap of yesterday's reading. A succession of bad kings, and in fact, the curve of demise was steepening. Remember, there was the cutting open the pregnant women. Not that it was probably any worse than what had already been going on up until that time, but because it was recorded, and the way Hebrew history is recorded, you start putting stuff in there like that when things are getting really bad. And also what had happened with Ahaz and child sacrifices, and with the temple, it's showing things are about to really get bad now. Okay, but we determined the success markers, which are to remove high places and give a repudiation of the father's sin. I mean, those were in repetition, repeated, often. How could we even miss them? All right, so now we go into chapter 17. Here is Hoshea the king. He is evil, but read this. It says he's not as evil as his fathers. Okay, there's a very intentional literary pattern here. Remember, when there was good kings, it would say that God approved of them, but they didn't repudiate their fathers, but they didn't tear down the high places. Now, it's not saying anybody's good, but it's Hoshea is evil, but not as evil. This is a clear literary design to point out the decline. All right, so then there's a synopsis that is given here in chapter 17. And we realized here it's all been adding up. Elisha has died. The spiritual direction's gone. All these kings go by. They're not tearing down the high places, even the good kings. Then we had in the previous reading the indicators that things were getting worse. Well, now we see they have hit ahead. The synopsis here is simple. Here were these people, the Hebrews, slaves in Egypt, and God takes them and nurtures them and gives them a land. And what are they going to do rather than worship their God? They're going to be like the people that surround them. In fact, not just like one set of people that surrounds them, but like a bunch of tribes and clans that surrounds them. They're going to build high places, and they're going to sacrifice to anything. They're going to build these certain pillars that is part of pagan worship. They are going to worship idols. They're going to conduct child sacrifices. They're going to build calves out of animals. They are going to even do sky worship celestial bodies, the planets and all of that. I mean, this is bad. They're doing everything. God says he warned them in the prophets. We see this, Ezekiel, very prominently in Ezekiel. Jeremiah, some of the minor prophets. And perhaps particularly with Isaiah. Probably about all of you were aware back in December during Advent. We were reading through Isaiah. And Isaiah, remember all of the depressing language that Isaiah was using. I mean, the book, and especially in the first half, first 2/3 of the book, it was just downright depressing. Well, Isaiah was in the middle of all of this that was going on in Second Kings, and he was writing about it, prophesying it, talking about it, saying things are going to get bad. Well, God rejects Israel, all of the tribes except Judah. But then, of course, he says, Judah's bad as well. They've done the same things. But the difference is in the northern divided kingdom now of Israel and the southern divided kingdom here in Judah. Jerusalem and the temple was here at Judah, and so God is going to give that sacred space a little more time, it seems like. But with all of the rest of the tribes, what's happening here is the Assyrian Empire has come in, conquered all of the other tribes, except for Judah, and I believe for the tribes of Levi, and have deported masses of the people. It was a strategy of relocation. If you take people, put them somewhere else, they're not as comfortable there, and they're going to have to fight through a lot of social issues, their own internal issues as a community, as well as those who were already settled in the land that now they've been relocated to. So they're not going to have time to fight the Assyrian Empire. The same thing, when the Assyrians took people from other parts of their world and put them there where the northern kingdom was, and so then you've got all of these issues going on. They're reacclimating to a new land, but yet there's still some Hebrews left behind. There's plenty of Hebrews left behind. They weren't all deported, and so then there's this issue. Remember the last time we were talking about the body politic, what you let into your community, what you let into your body. Now here's all these outsiders that have come into their area. This is going to be very confusing and very complex. They're not going to have time to worry about the Assyrians. Doesn't seem like they're going to have time to worry about God either. They've made a mess. In fact, though, there's going to be lions there in that area of the northern kingdom that's now been taken by the Assyrians that are going to be attacking the people. There's going to be priests that try to come in and teach the people what it means to live there and be in covenant with God, but they're not going to listen. There's going to be a mess there. There's going to be intermarriage, mixed marriages, children, and these children are going to become the Samaritans, who then, once we get into the New Testament, we realize that the Samaritans are very despised people. Remember, it's a corruption of the body politic. Mixed breeding, as we would impolitely call it. People who are no longer pure Hebrew, but mixed with someone else that's been brought to the land. This puts a community in jeopardy and makes people feel insecure. Okay, so at the same time, Judah is still around. We go into chapter number 18. And now Judah, the southern kingdom, gets a king, Hezekiah, and this guy is great. Finally, he's going to be the best king since Solomon, I suppose. Hezekiah is going to not only be good, but look at this in verse 3. He's going to do what his ancestor David did. He is going to eliminate the high places and tear down the pillars and the poles, and he's going to demolish the idols and all of this. Wow. So he has met the barometer for success, the marker for God's approval. And because he's a good king, and because this is a corporate community or collectivistic society, well, because they've got a good king, now they've got a good land. There's no individuality. The king is leading the people, and he's not by himself, but the people are following the king. He's going to be able to hold back the Assyrians that have taken now the northern divided kingdom. But the Assyrians are going to finally break him. He's going to try to buy the Assyrians off, and what is he going to do? He's going to take gold and silver from part of the temple construction and try to buy off the king of Assyria. This isn't good stuff at all. This is very pitiful. Remember, the first Kings opened up, it was all about the temple, and now they're taking parts of the temple down and away already. Now more so, in order to buy off a foreign king, and there's going to be this long standoff here between King Hezekiah of Judah, Jerusalem there, and Sennacherib of the Assyrians, and we're going to have to find out next week what happens. And so we are now reaching the finish line. We've seen the checkered flag, as it were, and now we're starting to take that third of four turns to head toward the finish line. All right. Once again, as a reminder, if you have anything you want me to address, any questions, anything to confront about this, let me know, and I'll put it in videos for next week. Thank you all. Thank you for staying with me during now these 20 days, and may the Lord add his richest blessing to the reading of his word.